My desire for perfection and my high standards are ruining my life. Now, I recognise that this is a problem for me, but also that it's a problem for lots of other young men. And as I've been trying to work through this problem, I realised I don't want anyone else to go through this as well. So I figured I might as well come on here and help you work through it as well. Now, on the surface, perfectionism seems like it's going to be a good thing. Surely the people who are aiming for perfection, who are striving to produce high quality work, the best work, are going to get there in one way or another. It's only a matter of time. It's like the kid in your class who's always getting straight A's. Surely he's a perfectionist. He's aiming higher than everyone else. He's hitting the top marks. But no, I don't think the kid getting straight A's is a perfectionist. I think the perfectionists are actually the ones who are underperforming consistently. In some horrible paradox, the perfectionists, the kids who care most, who care more than anyone else in the class about getting the high marks, are doing worse than the kids who don't care, who don't even want to be there. Because usually what happens with perfectionists is that kid is going to beat himself down. His work is never going to be good enough. He's never going to be able to impress himself or exceed his own expectations with what he can do. So he's going to beat himself down. He's going to make himself feel worse, and it's kind of like a negative feedback loop. Him telling himself those things that he's not good enough is going to make him perform worse. So the result will be worse. And then, so either that can happen, or because he can never attain that impossibly high standard, he can never live up to that standard he's set for himself, he's going to think, well, I can never be that good, so what's the point in trying at all? Perfectionists truly do hold themselves to a higher standard than anyone else in the world. And when they can't live up to that standard, they really just begin to question the whole thing. I'm never going to be good enough, so why would I even give it a shot? I'm just going to make myself look stupid if I fail. Now, where this kind of applies to my life at the moment, because I've recognised this pattern in myself for many years. I've always been a perfectionist for as long as I can remember. And in some ways, I used to think that was good, but now I realise it's kind of taking away more than it's giving back. So, you guys know I've been struggling to maintain a consistent upload schedule. It feels like I keep talking about that, but this is one of the reasons. For a long time, for the last few months, it's been like the only videos I want to upload are these fucking meticulously edited, beautiful masterpieces of videos. Just things that are like top tier in my book. Videos that I know I've put in as much effort as I possibly can into. And what ends up happening with that is I always find something that could be better. Like the editing will take hours and hours for those videos. Just an impossibly high standard that I'm setting for myself. And that kind of causes a bit of burnout. It's like that negative feedback loop cycle. I'm aiming for this impossibly high standard, and I'm working so hard in a short space of time to achieve that standard. And even though the videos turn out very good, it's like I don't really enjoy doing them. I don't enjoy the process of making the videos. Perfectionism is kind of taking that away from me. And another example I've been thinking of is sometime last year when I joined a new gym. And it was full of guys who were way bigger than me, who'd obviously been training for a lot longer, been working harder. But I found myself wanting to skip workouts almost, because it's like, oh, those guys are bigger than me. I'm making myself look like a bit of a fool by even hanging around them, which is so irrational. It's super irrational. But it's like, if I'm never going to be as big as them, or at least I'm not going to get that big within a short space of time, what's the point? So it's literally just a super irrational train of thought. What I've come to realise is that perfectionism is actually one of the biggest forms of insecurity. And it doesn't really get talked about in the same way that like fucking body positivity and like feeling insecure about your appearance does, or stuff to do with mental health. Well, I guess this kind of fits into mental health, but how fucking insecure do you have to be to have to put on this front all the time that you're perfect, that you're not even capable of human error, of making a mistake? It's like, it's completely irrational. It's like the basketball player who knows he is going to miss like at least one or two shots. He's never going to make 100% of the shots he takes. But instead of getting on the court and playing, he'd rather be benched. He'd rather be sitting on the bench the whole time, because at least that way the fans know that they can't determine whether he's actually capable of missing a shot. To them, it's kind of like he could be a perfect player, but he's probably not in actuality. Perfectionists are afraid of failure above all else. That's obvious. But when you set yourself to that high of a standard, when you set these impossibly high targets for yourself, like the impossible target for me could be, I'm going to get 5 of these incredibly beautifully edited videos out a week. And that's obviously not a realistic target for someone in my position who already has a hard enough time fucking managing my time and all that. I'm setting myself up for failure by doing that. Surely that should be obvious. But it's not obvious to a perfectionist. It's like, oh, next time it's going to be different. I will be able to get this amount of work done, even though it felt like hell last time and it was totally unattainable for me. That's the broken thinking of perfectionism. Perfectionists are broken. I don't want to come across as like offensive, but because this is the case for me, that's how I describe myself. Something in my mind is broken if I think that I can hold myself to that standard. I think from what I've been looking at, a lot of it is rooted in some kind of childhood trauma. And I'm not talking about trauma as in like, oh, I've got PTSD or something like that. I can't speak for absolutely everyone. But I think for a lot of people who suffer from this, it's because of their parents placing really kind of weighty expectations on them from a young age. Like someone whose parents really cared about their academic performance from a young age and was never satisfied. Like if they came home with a B, they were getting beaten. You have to get it up to like that fucking A++, otherwise your parents are never going to be happy with you. But that wasn't the case for me. I think where this comes from for me was, I've spoken about it before, I got bullied in high school. And I almost think this is kind of a response to that. It's like, oh wait, no, you all thought this of me. You all didn't like me. Actually, oh, I'm this great person. Actually, I'm perfect. I'm worthy of your attention, of your admiration. I think that's where it comes from for me. It's like I'm almost trying to prove something, but then it's that paradox that I talked about. It can end up stunting your growth. I think perfectionism and not wanting to expose a side of yourself that's flawed, not wanting to take a risk for fear of failure, is it's going to cause you to stay in this comfortable place. It's going to cause you to conform. You're never going to dare to be different or take a risk that's going to lead to you becoming exceptional. Exceptional? Yeah. It's never going to lead to you becoming exceptional. You're just going to stay bang average, which is a really detrimental place to be in. We're often told about risk taking, like becoming an entrepreneur. You could risk losing a lot of money, but you could also become very successful. You could end up making all of that back, plus millions. Sometimes there's positive risks and sometimes there's negative risks. But the thing is, with perfectionists, everything becomes a risk. Whenever you try something new, there's a risk that you're going to fail. Because obviously if it's something new, like you're not going to have the experience to fall back on, there's a good chance that you're going to fail. But because perfectionists are so afraid of that, of taking that risk, of being perceived as anything less than perfect, then they're never going to take a risk. And their life is going to stay stagnant. They're going to be in the same place for a long time. All your dreams fade away and die. And life eventually becomes miserable. And I'm not saying I've reached that point, but just to kind of illustrate, that's how far this problem can go. So what's the alternative to perfectionism? Well, I think it's excellence. And that might sound a bit confusing because perfect and excellent, they're kind of similar. They both involve holding yourself to a high standard, to be quite ambitious, like aspiring to achieve a high result. But they are actually quite different. I think where they differ is in their response to failure. Because we know perfectionists, they'll run away from failure at any chance. They'll fucking hide from it. They don't want their sense of self to be compromised. If they fail, then they're forced to confront themselves with the reality that they are they're less than perfect. Obviously, they're not going to want that. But excellence acknowledges the effort that goes into things and the failure that comes along with that. It's like when it comes to failure and excellence, failure is a teacher. It's an opportunity to learn and grow and become better. Going back to the example of basketball, any player knows that they're probably not going to make 100% of the shots they take, but that doesn't stop them from attempting to do so. And even the players who make just under half of the shots they take, like fucking 40% of the shots they take, they get in, they're still considered some of the best shooters in the league. We've got to embrace the process rather than the destination, with perfectionism being the destination, the thing that we're striving towards, which is kind of this, it sounds quite nice as an abstract goal, but we're never going to reach it realistically, because who's perfect in any profession? No one. It's an unattainable standard. And the process, the journey towards that is excellence, is the subtle improvements every single day to your game, trying to get that 1% better. And the best way to achieve excellence is by not embracing perfection. So with that in mind, how do we cure perfectionism? We've got to do just that. We've got to move away. We've got to move our mindset away from the destination of perfectionism and towards the journey and the process, towards getting better, even if it's in small steps. Not trying to get it perfect every time, just focusing on progress in any form. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm putting out this scrappy video that I'm barely going to edit. I'm not even going to watch it back before I release it. You can fucking hear me mouth breathing in between my words. I haven't even made my bed in the background, but that's the point. It's imperfect, and even though all these alarm bells are going off in my head, like I can't handle the imperfection, that's what's sustainable for me at the moment. I've already put out one very nicely edited and crafted video this week, so it's more important to just make progress, to keep getting my face out there. Maybe it sounds like my standards have slipped, that I'm not trying as hard as I used to, but I would argue that they haven't gone down. Maybe they've gone down in the metric of perfection, of absolutely fucking working myself to death on every single video, regardless of how unsustainable that is for me and for the future of the channel. But they've also gone up in the metric of progress. I'm putting out more content now, more consistently, which is going to be a good thing in the long run. So I'll finish by saying perfectionism isn't human. It's not what people like. There are people in this space, in the self-improvement community, who are absolutely killing it, even though they have terrible production quality. They're just filming on a fucking phone. The camera's moving around and blurry, and sometimes the wind gets in the way of what they're saying. But the reason they're successful is because they're relatable. They have character, they're authentic. They've established that connection between them and the viewer. So none of these fancy edits really mean that much in the grand scheme of things, because the only thing that really matters is fostering that connection between the creator and the viewer. It's the same thing with the bodybuilder. Has anyone ever achieved a perfect physique? Probably not. But does that stop them from trying? Does that give them an excuse to just go and be fat and lazy? No, they fucking give it their all regardless, even if perfection is the most unlikely of outcomes. So stop thinking about the destination and embrace the journey.